Show, presented by BTB Moving. We're setting up shop, so pop open the cooler, pull up a seat.
Who wants to have some fun?
Let's talk some pigskin.
You just want me next to your side to shoot photos and do color.
It's
and
nice to
stats.
have a Swiss Army knife there in the booth with me to do all the things that I can't do while I'm doing broadcasting on top of it. So.
It's not like you're not a Swiss Army knife yourself.
Well, it's nice to have multiple tools. So we are a couple of tools here in the studio for you today.
From the Score Sports Closet, it's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Just in the nick of time. Welcome in, everybody. The program just getting off and rolling here. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, along with Knight Uretsky. I'm Joey Kieran. Thanks so much for joining us for the program, which is brought to you by BTB Moving, providing labor services for your moving needs. Veteran-owned, affordable, dependable, efficient, and careful. Senior and veteran discounts are available. Book now at 541-315-0122. Find them on Facebook at BTB Moving. Well, we are off and rolling here on this Friday edition of the program, November 15th. Welcome in, everybody, as Week 2, the quarterfinals of the high school football playoffs kick off tonight. We've got plenty coming up here on the program today. We'll be talking about the high school football playoffs. We'll be talking about college football. Anybody heard of it? Yeah, kind of ramping up there as well. Big matchups coming up this weekend for the Ducks and the Beavers. Rumors about Dan Lanning and his future. We've got, college football rankings. Are they an embarrassment? There's one national pundit that thinks so. We got a Friday news dump to get in there with some fun headlines from the week and plenty of audio clips for you to tune in and hear about. So, Knight, let's. You good? How you doing good, man?
Well, honestly, I thought I was doing pretty good.
Uh-oh.
But we've run into a lot of troubles today, and the one thing that I'm noticing is on the USB drive that you gave me with all the clips today, it saved them as packages, and now
I
I'm
transferred the wrong files over to you.
Yep, so that's where I'm at. So I was scrambling trying to upload Audition, trying to find the right clip for the cold one that we're about to air.
Are you able to get this? This has been my day. So while you look at that, today started out, we've been having this glitch on the system every day, it seems like, for the last, I don't know how long now, but instead of playing my sports update, it doesn't play that, and then it sticks in clips from the show at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, we do the show every Friday from noon till 2, and it is pretty consistent there. We like to play some clips from Dan Lanning and other coaches and other football-related clips. And for some reason, the system keeps pulling in that instead of playing my sports update in the morning. That happened again this morning. Then my computer just absolutely decided to stop working at my desk. My keyboard decided to crap out. We've got other issues going on with some of the other stations around the building. And now this one, literally, though, this is on me. It's not on anything technology-wise, but it is definitely just kind of on par for what today has been.
It's been a day.
Any luck?
No.
Yeah, I kind of figured as much.
Yeah, no, it's saying that the file is not supported, and so I can't upload it.
Yeah, that's because I
open
gave you just kind of like the back-end audio portion, or the back-end like metadata or whatever for it. So
Gotcha.
I'll go ahead and pull it up here. We're just going to have to just bite the bullet and stop the audio recording of the show. We'll just have to rely on the YouTube stream, which, by the way, why don't you tell people where they can find us streaming online?
Yeah, you can find us streaming online at 541radio.com, or you can go onto YouTube, search 1490 The Score online, and you can watch the live video simulcast of this talk show. We do it every Friday from 12 to 2. We do have one thing to note, though. In a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from now, we will not be having an Umpqua Basin tailgate show. The reasoning why: Oregon State is playing Boise State on a Friday at 9 a.m. It is Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and so they have games throughout the entirety of that day. And for some reason, they decided, you know what, let's put two West Coast teams on TV at 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Really, really early.
Because everybody will be done with their Black Friday shopping. And on the East Coast, 9 a.m., you're looking at a noon kickoff. That's a prime window on the East Coast for two West Coast-based teams.
That's just brutal for a team like Oregon State, who's having to make a trip. It's not the longest trip. It's maybe an hour to fly from Corvallis to Boise.
Do you change time zones? Do you get into the mountain time zone in Boise?
I think you do.
So they would be playing. I guess it would be an hour later, so it'd be 10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock Boise time, which in Boise, still 10 a.m.'s early. I don't think I've ever had an Oregon game start before noon.
I can't think of.
I know that Oregon played Ohio State at that big noon 9 a.m. game. Mm-hmm. But that was, a game that was starting on the East Coast. I don't think I can think of a West Coast game starting at 10 in the morning. That's a very early start time.
It really is.
It's on par for the NFL. If you live on the West Coast, 10 a.m. first game of the day, great. That's fine. But in college football, you rarely get that. And I think that's very unique, just having a 10 a.m. game. How do the fans get into that one? How do the Boise State fans pregame for that? Because is it just mimosas all morning? Mimosas into the afternoon?
Bloody Marys, mimosas? You just start the night before and just never stop?
I think that's the
question.
Well,
it is Thanksgiving. A lot of people, you do family stuff, and then at night you kind of go out and do other stuff.
So what you're saying is eat dinner at 3 o'clock, because that's when you eat dinner on American Thanksgiving, right?
Yes,
it's 3 o'clock.
You don't have to call it American Thanksgiving. We're in America.
Yeah, okay.
I know you have your Canadian Thanksgiving that happened a month ago, but you don't have to call it American Thanksgiving. We're in America.
Okay, so on Thanksgiving,
there you go.
The Thursday.
I don't think there's really going to be many people that are going to confuse which holiday you're referring to.
Okay,
now if you're referring to Canadian Thanksgiving, call it that. Canadian bacon. Here it's just bacon or ham.
It's just ham.
Probably not Canadian bacon.
We have female bacon in Canada too. Anyways,
I
besides
knew this show was going to go off the rails.
It's going off the rails. But the point is that so you eat at 3. You kind of watch that last game of the day for Thursday football, Thanksgiving. You kind of drift off with that food hangover you kind of have. Kind of maybe take a long extended nap and then wake up at 3, 4 in the morning, and that's when you start your game day at Boise?
What'll be interesting is that, and we've gone completely a different direction here, but, a lot, students go home for Thanksgiving. You go back, you spend time with your family on Thanksgiving. They probably have extended time off there. So this is the day after. And I'm sure this is a constant kind of thing with that game after Thanksgiving, but this is the day after Thanksgiving, and it's a 9 a.m. kick, a 10 a.m. out there kickoff. How many students are going to be on campus for this game?
That's a great question. The other thing that I think about is the students from different universities back home in Boise that are going to be going to that game.
Yeah.
Because I know that when I went to the school at the University of Oregon, there were several people that I met that were from Boise that grew up big Boise State fans. Obviously, if you grew up in Boise, you're probably going to be a Broncos fan. How many of those students are going to be back home for Thanksgiving visiting their family and be at that game visiting their friends and whatnot?
I'm sure you're going to get a lot of that. And I was just thinking about the fact that this game traditionally has been Civil War weekend.
Yeah.
So you might have, maybe students that go to Oregon State and Oregon have gone back to homes if they're out of state. But for the most part, you'll have probably plenty of in-state students. It's the two in-state schools. So normally it's that rivalry game. I imagine it's probably not been much of a concern of getting the student body to the game, which you go to games early in the season before Oregon and Oregon State have the actual classes in session. Mm-hmm. And because they're on whatever system it is and we're on the West Coast and it just seems to start later, those games without the student section do feel different. Mm-hmm. And so, but the Civil War, it's a rivalry game. It's two Oregon schools, so you got to imagine that a large portion of your student body hasn't left the state, so getting to the game is not that big of an issue. You have two schools that are separated by 45 miles or whatever it is, that the students from one school, the visiting school, don't have to go far to get there. So it's a completely different atmosphere, the fact that this is no longer the Civil War on Black Friday or the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Because the Civil War played on Fridays, on Black Friday. That's not uncommon for there to be a college football game for the Ducks, for the Beavers on the Friday after Thanksgiving. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this kind of shakes out. Now, Boise State's a good program. I imagine their fans are going to be turning up for this game, no matter what, because they're a top 25 program. So, of course, they're going to be there to support.
They're a top 15 program. That's the thing. And if they're going up against Oregon State, who's going to be a future conference rival, you got to think that Oregon State, Boise State's going to be a pretty heated rivalry.
Yeah, I would hope so.
You would hope so. You have the Ag School from the school to the west of you, or the state to the west of you, and then you have kind of Boise State. I feel like it's a good rivalry that you could potentially build up to. The other thing, too, is because it's a 9 a.m. game on the West Coast, 10 a.m. Boise time, if this game's at 6 o'clock, it's completely different. Oregon versus Oregon State last year, it was on the Friday right after Thanksgiving, same day, but it was a 6 p.m. kickoff. It was a late game, and that's great. It would have been great for this matchup because it's only 8 hours to drive from Corvallis to Boise.
Sure.
So if it's a 6 p.m. game, you could have people get up at 6 in the morning, get to Boise around 2, 3 in the afternoon, depending on how much they stop. And, they can go to the game and spend the night in Boise and come back on Saturday. They don't have that option. That's going to be really interesting how many Oregon State fans are going to make the trip because it really isn't that far of a road trip. If you look at Oregon State's schedule this year and the teams they played, maybe Boise State going into the year was probably a desirable road game that you would be looking at to because it's so close. You're able to drive that distance, and there is a little bit of a regional rivalry in that, just Idaho versus Oregon, but you don't have that opportunity because of the early kickoff. All that to say, we will not have a show in 2 weeks.
That us filling time while we figured out our audio stuff is what has led to this entire breakdown of a game that's not going to happen for 3 more weeks.
No, 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks, but I guess 3 games. I should say. So we're 3 games away from that. Yeah, that's fun. So there you go. A nice breakdown of our post-Thanksgiving plans, and maybe you have thoughts on that. Beaver fans, are you traveling to Boise State for a game against a top 25 team, a program that, if you can pull off an upset, that's a huge win for your team. More than likely, you're going to need that game or the next one to get to bowl eligibility. So a couple of big games coming up there. That could be your last chance to get to bowl eligibility. It would be a big game. Are you going to be traveling for the holidays to Boise? That interesting. Not a thought that I had gotten to in my thought process as of yet, but it's an interesting kind of scenario and setup there for that contest.
Do you think there's an Oregon State fan out there that's trying to convince his wife? He's like, honey, I'm telling you, Boise for Thanksgiving. Let's make the trip.
Let's get the whole family together in Boise. We'll go to Boise and
I like Boise. Have you been to Boise?
I have not been to
Boise. Boise is a very nice city.
I have driven through the Panhandle top portion of Idaho. I stayed in Coeur d'Alene one night, and that's all I've ever done. So
cool. That area is very beautiful too.
Yeah,
Coeur d'Alene's great
for sure.
The drive, actually, if you ever get an opportunity, the drive from Boise up to Coeur d'Alene is stunning.
No, I can imagine.
Very, very beautiful.
I guess I should mention I did go to Lewiston this last summer. So,
yeah, you did.
I was there. So
that drive though from Boise up to Lewiston is phenomenal. All the way to Pullman, Moscow area, really, really nice.
Oh, beautiful country for sure.
McCall, Idaho, one of the best places to go. Really, really nice. It's up in the mountains. Really good winter sports activities, great for skiing, snowboarding. They have an indoor hockey rink right next to the lake there, which is really, really cool. Really nice modern town. Anyways, that drive, phenomenal. But Boise is a very, very nice town. I would highly recommend anybody considering making that trip to make that trip because it's just a great place to go visit. Really clean downtown. They're doing a lot. At one point in the past decade, Boise was one of the top growing cities in the country, and I still think it's probably top 5 in terms of just growth in the area, and there's a large reason why.
If anybody wants to share today's program with the city, the city commerce with the city of Boise, we can get you in touch with Knight Uretsky. Might be angling for a new job as a city spokesperson for the city of Boise, Idaho. All right. Well, we've gotten this program off and rolling, and we're going all sorts of directions. Let's get into what I figured we'd start with today is high school football returning to action here tonight. We've got playoff games coming up this evening, notably here in the Umpqua Basin. We've got 2 home games coming up this weekend, one tonight, one tomorrow, as Oakland and North Douglas have made it into the quarterfinals. It's where we're going to kick off today's program as we get things started for you. It's our time to crack a cold one.
Nothing gets a tailgate party going like a nice cold beverage. So let's crack one open and kick off today's show with our top story.
The kids are excited. I think this is the most excited I've seen them all year. They've all wanted this game again against Oakland since the first one we played them. But as every coach knows, you have to take it a week at a time. I wish we could have had Oakland later in the bracket. I think it will be a good game.
There's no surprises, so your surprise element's out the door, and both teams know what the other one brings to the table. It's tough to play a team twice. It's tough to beat a team twice. We've had some history in the last 15 years at Oakland with teams we've had to play twice, and it's tough. And Myrtle Point's tough, and they bring a lot to the table. That it's going to be a challenge. You're going to have to be ready. You're going to have to be focused.
Every game we're definitely going to face some adversity, and it's going to be put to the test. And how well we deal with that, I think, will determine our success.
That was head coach of the Myrtle Point Pacific Bobcats, Jamil Wynn, and then head coach Ben Lane of the Oakland Okers, and sophomore quarterback Ryan Fullerton. You want to hear more of those interviews, make sure you tune in tonight at 6 o'clock as our extended pregame gets started with the Friday night pregame show presented by Mountain Mike's right here on The Score. And that'll lead us all the way to kickoff there for the Oakland Okers taking on Myrtle Point in the quarterfinals of the 2A state playoffs. Tomorrow, it's North Douglas as the Warriors had a first-round bye. Now they get a quarterfinal matchup against Doofer in the 8-man football playoffs, so the 1A 8-man bracket underway there. That game, both games are going to be played at Sutherland High School coming up today and tomorrow. Tonight at 7 o'clock, the Oakland Okers taking on Myrtle Point. It's a rematch, and you talked to Ryan Fullerton. You'll have that interview coming up tonight on the Friday night pregame show. I talked with both Coach Wynn and Coach Lane, and everybody seems to, this matchup, I think, has got everybody kind of exciting. How cool is it to see a league opponent and get a rematch? For Myrtle Point, they started out good against Oakland, led 14-6 at the end of the first quarter, and then couldn't score again the rest of the way. This will be their chance to kind of learn from that matchup and see if they can get some revenge, beat the undefeated team, and beat Oakland and knock out a team that was considered a state title contender. Here's your chance, Myrtle Point. Should be a fun atmosphere at this one here tonight.
This is what every team that loses a game wants. They want a second chance.
Yeah.
That's what Ohio State wants right now with Oregon. They want a second chance. And right now, Myrtle Point gets that opportunity. And, you heard Coach Lane last week after the game when we had him for the Bowers Industrial post-game show. And he said, they gave us their best shot last week. He mentioned how they gave them the best run for their money all season long. Oakland's undefeated. But this was their toughest opponent. They were losing after the first quarter. Ryan Fullerton mentioned it. It was a close game to start, and they were able to pull through. But at the same time, you think about, this being a second chance for Myrtle Point, but this is also a second chance in the larger grand scheme of things for Oakland, because last year, the problem for Oakland was they just got hurt.
Yeah.
They were a very, very hurt program, and they didn't have that opportunity to be at their best health heading into the postseason, and that was a large reason why they lost in the semifinals. This year, it's a way healthier team. Silas Arscott's back.
Yeah.
He missed all of last season. Gabe Williamson seems to be very healthy. The offensive line's there. The wide receivers are there. The health is there for Oakland, and so this is an opportunity, if you look at the whole postseason, as a second chance for them to try to rebound and, build on and get to that state championship game and win the state championship for the second time in the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this one goes here coming up tonight as the Okers take on the Bobcats. just the familiarity. But I also think that you got the aspect that I think Oakland knows they are probably the stronger team. This Myrtle Point team, really interesting storyline behind that. They were playing 8-man football last year. They bumped back up to 9-man football this year. It's been a program that's been kind of a program in flux. They've gone, it wasn't that long ago, just pre-pandemic a little bit, where they were 2A football playing 11-man back at that time when 2A was 11-man. Then dropped down to 8-man football after the pandemic. They were playing 8-man for a little while up until last year, where they made a run all the way to the semifinals last year, and now they bumped back up to 9-man football here this year, playing with a co-op with Pacific. So it's kind of interesting to me, just a program that's kind of been they've gone from one level down to another level, back up. So they've been a little all over the place, but it's kind of cool to see that they're now back here at this 9-man level, and I think that's probably a good spot for them. But they were a good team last year, graduated a ton. But I think, like you said, this Oakland team is healthy. They're confident. They're rolling. In the conversation I had with Coach Ben Lane that you'll hear later tonight, he just talked about how this team is kind of humble. They don't necessarily kind of read all their press clippings, you could say. And they're a team that's kind of driven to get there. And I think maybe falling short last year, having guys like you said, Silas Arscott, who missed an entire season, I think they're hungry to get a little bit further than they were a year ago. I think next week in the semifinals, the 4 teams that you get in the semifinals of this 2A playoff, I think it's going to be really interesting to see those matchups and who can make their way out of it, because I think you really are looking at 4 really top programs at the 2A level that have a chance at winning it all. And I think next week, when you get down to the final 4 teams, if they're the 4 that, whether they're the 4 I think that they probably could be or not, I think it's going to be really competitive next week at that 2A level. It should be a lot of fun. North Douglas, meanwhile, they have been off for a while. They had a first-round bye. We'll see how that plays out for them. We haven't gotten a chance to really talk with them. I don't know about you. I'm thinking about going up there to Sutherland High School on Saturday at 1 o'clock for that game to go catch our boy Hunter Vaughn and the North Douglas Warriors.
If I wasn't going to Vancouver, BC this weekend for the Grey Cup, I'd be going to that game.
Oh, dang it. I was hoping I'd have a partner for that one.
Yeah, I really want to go. Honestly, like, if it was up at Sutherland and if I wasn't in Canada this weekend for the Grey Cup, I'd be at that game. Like, I'm dying to see Hunter Vaughn, too. I'm dying to see North Douglas. Like, they've been dominating teams all season long. So it breaks my heart that the one weekend I'm out of town, they're playing on a Saturday. Why can't they just play on a Friday?
Because the field's already being used. It would have been how cool.
And you know how cool
it would have been that doubleheader.
A doubleheader. Like 3 o'clock.
Let's do 2 games today.
3 o'clock and 7 o'clock game. Spend the whole day at Sutherland High School.
We could have done the show up there.
We could have done the show there. That would have been phenomenal.
Now we're talking.
They just didn't consult the media guys.
Oh, man. We could have had all day coverage
there's
from
been
Oakland
so much,
Sutherland High School.
There's been so much controversy right now with the Big Ten and them getting the big noon kickoff consistently. Why couldn't us, the media here in Douglas County, controlled the kickoffs once,
right?
To have a doubleheader on
Give
a
us
Friday.
the media schedule. Come on now. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a fun week, and I'm really excited to see what North Douglas has. So I guess I might be, maybe I'll have to try. I imagine maybe I could talk Dan Bain into going with me. I'm sure Tom Agers.
You should definitely go.
Tom Agers is probably going to be there covering it for the newspaper, so I'll probably have a few friends up there
to
hang out with while I go up there. But yeah, I probably figured I might go check it out for at least a half or see about how things are going in that one. But North Douglas taking on Duffer, which is a great matchup. Duffer's been a classically very good team at that 8-man level, so it'll be interesting to see.
And you were talking about it earlier, like their coach at Duffer is like 6th all time.
Yeah, he's one of the top winningest coaches in high school football here in the state of Oregon. So it's not going to be an easy matchup, but I do think this North Douglas team is they're very hard to slow down.
And the terrible part about this is that this may be their only home game. Because next week they would.
Well, next week we'll start getting to neutral sites for the semifinals, and you mentioned it's their only home game. They're playing at Sutherland High School.
And that's a bit away, right?
I mean, it's not as close as it is for Oakland, but it's not too terrible. But a little trip down I-5, I imagine. I'd be curious which direction they decide to go on that. Whether they go down 138 West.
No, they wouldn't
down
go
through Elkton.
No, they would just go straight south through Young and get to the 5, right?
I guess is 99 probably maybe go through there. I don't know. I'm not sure.
There's like
I've
a
been to
road that
Drain a couple of times.
I know there's a
but-
road that you can get off on, like on the 5. Is it the 99 there that goes through Young?
There's probably some sort of back roads. Let's see.
Eagle Valley Road.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at here.
Yeah,
too.
takes you
down
through
to
Yoncalla. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So go by Yoncalla out down to I-5 and then go down to Sutherland. Yeah, that would make most sense. Yeah,
But still,
I've done that Eagle Valley, but I must have done Eagle Valley all the way up to Drain. Went back in the day when I would go out and cover fall camps getting started for football teams, and done the Yoncalla North Douglas double dip on a trip up that direction.
It's still a 27-minute drive.
Yeah, it's not necessarily short, that's for sure.
No.
So there we go. We're getting ready for high school football stuff. We'll talk more about these throughout the rest of the program. Are you going to a game? What do you think? Are you rooting for the Okers? You want to just show some love for your team, the Okers, the Warriors? Hit us up at 541-673-5551. That's the phone number here, 541-673-5551. Give us your thoughts on these upcoming matchups. Or as we told you about, we are streaming on our YouTube channels, 1490 The Score on YouTube. Find the video stream there and share your thoughts with us in the comment section on our video streams. So we'd love to hear from you. You could at least just give us a go Oakland, go North Douglas, whoever you're rooting for, or both teams by that. You could do that too. But we'd love to hear from you and hear your thoughts on these upcoming high school playoff matchups. Good teams. I think we got a chance to see two teams advance here this weekend, and a possibility of two teams that could be playing for state titles when it's all said and done. We got to get to a break, and when we come back, we are going to continue talking football here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. We've got the party started. We cracked a cold one. We're ready to go for today's show. When we come back, it's the fear of every Oregon Duck fan. It's always in the back of your head. We'll discuss when we come back. Right now, let's get you a sports update here with Knight Uretsky.
For your Score Sports Update, I'm Knight Uretsky. The high school football playoffs continue today. In the Class 2A state playoffs, the number 2 Oakland Okers host the number 7 Myrtle Point Bobcats in a rematch from the regular season. The two league opponents met on October 18th, with the Okers rallying from a first quarter deficit to win 38-14. Now, the Bobcats look for revenge and to knock the Okers out of the postseason. Tonight's game kicks off at 7 p.m. from Sutherland High School. Fans can tune in for coverage starting at 6:45 p.m. on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM. Tonight's broadcast will be audio only, but you can also hear it online at 541radio.com or the 541 radio app. Coming up tomorrow, the North Douglas Warriors begin the playoffs after a first-round bye. North Douglas is the 3 seed in the 1A 8-man playoffs and will host 6-seeded Dufour on Saturday at Sutherland High School. Game kicks off at 1 p.m. For UCC, the Umpqua men's basketball team is in Arizona for the start of their regular season. The Riverhawks got in a handful of exhibition games last week, but officially start the year with 3 games over 3 days in the desert. The UCC men will face the Diamond Doves from Overtime Elite in their first game tonight at 6 p.m. Tomorrow, the Riverhawks take on Scottsdale Community College at 3 p.m. And then on Sunday, UCC squares off with Mesa College at 9 a.m. The Umpqua women's team will be hosting the UO club team for an exhibition today. That game begins at 4:30 p.m. in the UCC gym. The Riverhawks officially start the season next week at the Clackamas Tournament in Oregon City. For Oregon State, the Oregon State men's basketball team is off to a 3-0 start on the year and will try to stay undefeated today when Cal State Fullerton visits Gill Coliseum. The Titans are 0-3 with losses to big-time programs like Stanford and Colorado. Tonight's game tips off at 7 p.m.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
Things have changed, and you're at home a lot more. It's the perfect time to listen to The Score via Alexa. If you haven't started, it's simple. Just tell your Alexa device to enable skill The Score to get it set up. After that, all you do is tell Alexa to play 1490 The Score. Whether working from home, sitting by the pool, or just staying home after a hard day out of the house, your Alexa speaker is just one more way to get the sports you love. Listen via Alexa to The Score. Chilling at the tailgate party, getting ready for the games. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
I would just beg Dan Lanning, don't do this, okay? First of all, college coaches have not had a lot of success going to the NFL, okay?
There's no chance he's leaving Oregon for the NFL. That dude didn't want Alabama, so he's going to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars? No chance.
I said this to Dan Lanning, and I said so respectfully to him. I said, Coach, I don't want you to get offended, but when you talk to your team, there's just like a certain passion that overtakes your body where you look like and you sound like a football psycho, and I love that in a football coach. But when I look at Dan Lanning, I'm not saying he can't coach in the NFL, Stu, but I think he's best fit in college. Sometimes like that rah-rah, I'm the leader, everyone buy into my message, doesn't resonate with grown men in the NFL.
Welcome you back here to the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. That was Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff on the Maggie and Pearl Show in the morning here on The Score. Then Zach Gelb of the Zach Gelb Show that you hear in the afternoons here on The Score. It was a popular topic. I heard it on the Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano that you hear on the afternoons here on The Score. Basically, I heard the last 2 days, most every show that you hear on our radio station talking about Dan Lanning, who is apparently a name that at least one NFL reporter says, it's a name I would keep an eye on, right? I mean, the report wasn't like Dan Lanning's a favorite to get a job. It's just that he was a name that you might hear considered.
He was a name that an executive for an NFL organization pointed out, saying that guy has some Dan Campbell in him, and he wouldn't be surprised if his name got floated around for some NFL coaching jobs.
You're a Duck fan. I'm a Duck fan. We have lived this life many, many years.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what's crazy about that is that you say that, and I remember always in the back of our head, Mario's gonna leave.
Yeah.
Dan gets here, and we're like, oh gosh, is he gonna leave again when Auburn comes open, when Texas A&M comes open, when Alabama came open? But Dan just reassured us time in, time out, the grass is damn green in Eugene.
Dang it, I should have worn that shirt today.
And that's the thing is that I haven't even thought about that. It's kind of like being in so many toxic relationships in a row, and then you finally
just expect to be hurt.
You just expect to be hurt and left, and then all of a sudden you get into a stable relationship, and you're like, oh, this is what it's like.
This is how it's supposed to be.
This is how it's supposed to be, right? And you just have no concern because you just trust that person. Mm-hmm. That's how you feel with Dan Lanning right now, is that you really trust him. You trust that he's going to stick around. There's a reason why he said the grass is damn green in Eugene, and they made a whole marketing campaign, and they released shirts that, people like you would buy. And
Whoa. What's that supposed to mean?
I'm just saying that, it was a big marketing campaign. And you don't produce those shirts, and you don't put that out there unless you're going to keep your word. And I think that Dan Lanning really wants to keep his word. And, he's talked about it a lot. He has no aspirations for the NFL. He's never coached in the NFL.
No.
His entire life he's coached college football. I don't think that he wants that opportunity. He likes coaching college football. There's a reason why he took that step and went and became a GA at Pitt and then has stayed in college football throughout the entirety of his career. I'm sure after being a GA at Alabama, I'm sure with being at Georgia, there was probably some opportunities to make the jump to the NFL, but he didn't. Why? Because he likes coaching college football. And so that's where I'm at. It's so weird because I just feel so comfortable and stable with Dan Lanning being the coach. I have no worry about him leaving. And for a majority of our lives as Duck fans, that hasn't been the case. It hasn't been the case since Bellotti.
Yeah, I was going to say majority of your life as a Duck fan. Early on in my Duck fandom, you went from Rich Brooks to Mike Bellotti, long term with a ton of assistant coaches that never went anywhere, and then Bellotti kind of forced into retirement. Chip Kelly takes over, and Chip was there for a while. I mean,
he was there for like 4 years.
I mean, it was a while. It was more than just Cristobal and Taggart.
I think Cristobal might have been there as long or just as long as, let's see, Cristobal. I feel like Mario was there probably just as long as Chip Kelly was. No,
I guess in my head it doesn't feel that way. But.
Okay, so Mario Cristobal was the head coach at Oregon for 4 full seasons. He coached the bowl game for a 5th season the year before that.
Chip Kelly was there from 2009 to 2012.
Yeah.
So 4 seasons.
But you also have to factor in he was also the offensive coordinator for a couple of years.
So that probably is
if you factor in that. But also Cristobal was an assistant at Oregon for that year. Yeah. So they were a head coach at Oregon for the same period of time. They were there for 4 years. But the problem is that once Chip Kelly was gone, then you kind of brought in Mark Helfrich, and he was there for 4 years. Is that right?
Kelly coached 53 games. Mark Helfrich coached 53 games. Mario Cristobal coached 48. So not far behind.
Yeah.
It feels completely different in my head. Now, Chip Kelly left for the NFL. Totally understandable. You know, he had the highest of highs at Oregon, had taken the program to levels it had never seen. And it's like, okay, you left for the NFL. You left for the big lights of the big jobs. And so you get that. Mario Cristobal started taking the program to big heights as well. But I think what is the biggest thing is that Cristobal came and took over the job after Willie Taggart, who just absolutely pulled the rug out from Duck fans everywhere. I mean, hindsight, totally okay with it. Mm-hmm. I'm perfectly happy that Willie Taggart's not there.
Well, I mean, they didn't pull the rug. He left.
No, he pulled the rug out from our feet. Yeah, totally just snake oil salesman in the dark, just out of town.
Just put a kid in a hospital and said, all right, I'm going to go to Florida State.
Just decided, hey, here we go. So it's I think the scenarios surrounding the timing around both of them is a little bit different. We had Mike Bellotti. Kelly had been here as an offensive coordinator, elevated to the head coaching job, left for the NFL because you knew that, look, that's kind of the natural progression. And he had done a really good job. So that one felt different than I think Cristobal. But nonetheless, I agree with you. I don't think Dan Lanning, I think you have more faith than I do.
Yeah,
that he's not going anywhere. I don't think he's going anywhere this year.
Like what has he said that's made you believe?
Nothing at all. He hasn't said anything. It's not Dan that I'm worried about. It is the lure of other opportunities, of big moments, of those, and I don't think he's going to leave for anything. You were talking about Kansas City Chiefs the other day. Andy Reid's going to retire at some point,
and that's the one position that I think. Maybe.
Or the other thing I could think of is, what if Dan Lanning wins a national championship this year? And I'm not saying he leaves this year, but what if he sees a run of huge success at Oregon and he's kind of like hit the benchmarks in college football? Like he's a guy to me that feels like, yeah, he's devoted, he is in, he's locked in, he's here, but he also feels like a guy to me that wants a challenge, that continues to seek personal growth. And if you've kind of reached the top and the pinnacle and you do it consistently, he may get to a point where he wants to try a new challenge. I mean, as most of us get to at some point in a professional career, you look for new ways to challenge yourself, to provide you new interest in things to try and stretch yourself with. So I think my fear, and it's not necessarily a fear, but it's kind of like Chip Kelly, where he gets to a point where, okay, I've hit certain benchmarks and goals at college football. Now let's try, let me see what I can do somewhere else.
I think that, those kind of coincide with each other. I see where you're coming from. I think that right now he has young kids that
Yeah.
have been on the move quite a bit, and he's talked about how he wants them to stick around and graduate school here. And so, I think that, I think his youngest kid's in, 4th or 5th grade right now. Sure, in 8 years, if Oregon wins 4 national championships in the next 8 years, and 8 years from now, that's probably the time that Andy Reid's probably considering retiring.
8 years from now, you think Andy Reid's lasting that much longer?
Dude, Andy Reid's not that old. I think
if he wins 3 consecutive Super Bowls, adding to his total,
dude,
Andy Reid's got to be close to his 70s.
He's 66. Coaches coach a long time. I could see it happening. What?
66. He's 74.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, Nick Saban just hung it up, and he's 73.
The other thing is how long has Patrick Mahomes been in the league?
I mean, he's been in the league since he was drafted 2017.
So 7 years, 8 more, 50. I mean, granted, look, we got Aaron Rodgers playing into his 40s. Tom Brady did it, but
But my point is 8 years from now, if Dan Lanning, his kids are graduated and he's won 4 national championships at Oregon and the opportunity to come home to Missouri and coach the Kansas City Chiefs arose, maybe that's the situation. I think that's the only NFL team that I can see Dan Lanning leaving for.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to go to the Cowboys. The Cowboys, ludicrous name, lot of money,
That's the thing.
brand.
Why would you leave where Oregon is right now to be at the bottom of the rung in the NFL?
And that's the
unless
point.
you didn't like the grind of college football, which I totally. I mean,
he likes
there are
the
coaches
grind.
that don't like that, but yeah, he's okay with it.
No, and where he's at is he actually likes recruiting. You heard it right after the Ohio State game gets done. All right, if you have any good recruit or good football players, tell them to come to Oregon.
Well, and he's the guys that we see kind of that were jumping that, like Chip Kelly. He went from UCLA as a head coach to being, he didn't go to the NFL, but he left for a different job and took something that was going to be less demanding on him. We saw other college coaches leave a head coaching job to be an assistant in the NFL.
That's just Chip Kelly, though.
But there's
also college head coaches.
Nick Saban retires. The college coach, that person is evolving with the game itself. And Dan Lanning, I think, is that next evolution of a college football coach. And so, yeah, I believe that. I think he's in it for a decent length here.
He's the perfect coach for the modern college football era because he understands NIL, he understands recruiting, and he thrives on it. That's what he thinks about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, Oregon winning games, but it's also recruiting. It's also the NIL factor. It's just making sure that all of his ducks are in a row, literally and figuratively. But at the end of the day, Nick Saban, he was there for a long time, and he kind of just got aged out of it. He got to a point where he was like, I'm done with it. College football's changed.
Yeah.
Dan Lanning's kind of just come in right at that point where college football's changing, and he's kind of been one of the leading innovators to it. Actually, this is actually a funny story. So yesterday I was reading about Sherms, Thunderbird Market.
And you were doing some deep dive research yesterday.
Yeah, and so Sherms, I wanted to know about what happened, how did Sherms get here? What's the story of Sherms?
Okay.
And Sherms in the state of Oregon, they were known as being one of the innovators. They were the first 24/7 store in Eugene. Initially, Sherm owned a store in Eugene, and they were the first 24/7 operation there. And then they went down to Medford, bought a store down there, the Thunderbird Market in Medford, turned that into a 24/7 store. That was very innovative, right at the change of times. What else did they do? They became the first store in Southern Oregon to be able to use barcodes. So they were the first ones that used barcode scanners and utilize that to elevate their business. That's kind of what Dan Lanning's done. He's come in at the right time, and he's been very innovative in the way that he's recruited and used his NIL resources and used the resources at Oregon. I don't know why you're laughing. I think this is a great point about how people in Oregon can be innovative, and that's exactly what Nike's done. That's exactly what Dan Lanning's done, and that's exactly what people down here in Southern Oregon have done. As small as it sounds, even Sherm's Thunderbird Market.
I just love that. I mean, Nike. Okay, sure, yeah. I mean, there's a connection. Making the parallels, sure. You just compared the University of Oregon football team, Dan Lanning, to Sherm's Thunderbird Market. I just love it. I mean, that is a connection. You're not getting this analysis anywhere else.
Yes.
Nobody else is talking Sherm's Thunderbird and Oregon Duck football than right here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. You're awesome. But yes, I mean, I'm not worried about him leaving right now, like this year. His name is starting to get floated out there. I'm not worried about that. I agree with you. He's not taking any job in the NFL just to get to the NFL. I don't think that's his goal. But, yeah, I could see it eventually. I could. Coaches coaches don't stick around like Nick Saban. Coaches don't. I mean, all the greats of the lore of college football. Hell, I mean, Thurman Bell was here for 45 years at Roseburg High School. You're not getting those kind of coaches anymore in football at any level.
I mean, unless it's Dan Lanning. And again, he said
I hope you're right.
And his thing is he said he doesn't want to make that move to the NFL. He doesn't have an alma mater. Like, he's not leaving Oregon for William Jewell.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a difference. There was a reason why, Willie Taggart left because he wanted to go back to Florida.
Totally.
So he went to Florida State. Mario Cristobal went to Miami, played football at Miami, won a national championship at Miami, grew up there. He wanted to be back home close to his family. That's totally understandable. Dan Lanning doesn't have that. Like the closest thing he has to that is the Kansas City Chiefs, being from Western Missouri, and he's a diehard Chiefs fan. He was at the Super Bowl this past year, and there's a lot of his players that are Bay Area athletes that probably grew up Niners fans that were unhappy with him going in, showing off his Chiefs jersey and being at the Super Bowl. But I think that's the most passionate thing he has in terms of football outside of Oregon, is just the Chiefs. And I really think that would be the only offer that he would slightly consider. I don't think he'd take it, though. I still think that he loves Oregon. He loves the weather. He loves fishing. I mean, since he's moving to Oregon, he's become a big fly fisherman, gotten into that sort of thing. He has all the resources in the world here. He has job security. The grass is damn green in Eugene. He's not leaving unless, for some reason, maybe he wins 4 national championships and he feels maxed out. And the Chiefs' job opens up, and he's like, you know what? The kids are out of the house. Let's move back to Missouri. That's the only situation I can really think of.
It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, providing you analysis that you're not going to get anywhere else. That is Nat Uretsky. I'm Joey Kieran. You can give us a call, share your thoughts. You don't get a chance to do it anywhere else. You can share your thoughts right here. 541-673-5551. That's 673-5551. We got to get to a break. Hey, if you know of someone or a family in need this holiday season, well, now is your chance to try and make those wishes that they might have come true. It is Wish Upon a Star, our annual kind of campaign of trying to make life better for those that might be in need this holiday season. You can nominate someone by going to 541radio.com and submitting a nomination letter there, or drop one off at Rogue Credit Union on Stevens or Garden Valley here in Roseburg. Make sure to put a contact name and a phone number where you can be reached during the day so that we can try and put the pieces together to make these wishes come through. We'll start announcing wishes coming up December 9th, and really an exciting and fun time of year here around the building. We'll be back after this quick timeout here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show on 541radio.com and on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM.
With a Score 92.3 FM, 1490 AM news update, I'm Ashley Claiborne. A winter storm watch is in effect from Sunday afternoon through Monday evening for mountain areas in parts of southern Oregon. Forecasters at the National Weather Service said heavy snow is possible with accumulations between 5 and 20 inches and wind gusts as high as 40 miles an hour. And the watch area includes the southern Oregon Cascades and Siskiyou Mountains and applies to portions of highways 138, 230, 58, 140, and 66, along with Diamond Lake, Willamette Pass, Union Creek, and Lake of the Woods. Check in with our partner station, News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN, and check back at 541radio.com to stay connected with updated weather information. And a water main replacement project on Southeast Stevens Street in Roseburg is underway and leading to daytime closures that could impact traffic heading into downtown. For more information about the project and the closure, as well as complete local news coverage at 541radio.com. In sports, the high school football playoffs continue today. In the Class 2A state playoffs, number 2 ranked Oakland Oakers host number 7 Myrtle Point Bobcats in a rematch from the regular season. The two league opponents met October 18th, with the Oakers rallying from a first-quarter deficit to win 38-14. Now the Bobcats are looking for revenge and hopefully to knock the Oakers out of the postseason. Tonight's game kicks off at 7 p.m. from Sutherland High School. Tune in for coverage starting at 6:45 on the Score 92.3 FM, 1490 AM. And while tonight's broadcast is audio only, it can also be heard online at 541radio.com as well as the 541 Radio app. See more sports scores, schedules, and updates all at 541radio.com. Rain likely this afternoon with a high right about 50 degrees, and then tonight a chance of rain, cloudy and 36 for a low. News and information 24/7 at 541radio.com. This is the Score 92.3 FM, 1490 AM.
The spirit of the holidays should be a vision of warmth and comfort. For some of our friends and neighbors in Douglas County, the hopes and dreams of the season have been drastically changed. You can help when you wish upon a star. Road Credit Union and The Score would like to add your name to the list of people who see a tough situation and want to help. We're looking for people who will take a few minutes and tell us a story of a Douglas County area individual or family in need. Road Credit Union and The Score's Wish Upon a Star program can make something special happen in what may seem like an impossible situation. If you know someone who truly needs help, nominate them at 541radio.com or send a letter to Wish Upon a Star, 345 Northeast Winchester Street in Roseburg, 97470. You can also drop a letter off at Road Credit Union on Northeast Stevens or on Garden Valley. Please be sure to include as much detail as possible and daytime contact information. Thank you for making Wish Upon a Star a special part of our holiday celebration. Happy holidays from Road Credit Union and The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM.
Recapping games and looking ahead to the weekend, this is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
Oh, man, what a show we have had so far. Wrapping up the first hour of the program here with you. It is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. You can book your next move with them at 541-315-0122 or find them on Facebook. BTB Moving. Well, again, just content you're not going to find anywhere out there. We've got it for you right here. We'll be breaking down Ducks and Beavers coming up next hour. Oregon at Wisconsin. Camp Randall did not make plans to go travel to that one in time to go out to my wife's native land, but we'll see how that goes at the household here this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you would have had to miss the Oakland Oakers game tonight, but that would be a road trip. I mean, I don't know about road trip, but
I've done that road trip, but that takes a few days.
It does take a few days.
So I don't have that kind of time.
I did do me and my parents when we went and road tripped across the country and back. We did La Crosse, Wisconsin, all the way to Oregon in one day, no stops.
Ooh.
We traded drivers and we were able to do that throughout the night.
That
was a long day. We went to Mount Rushmore.
The 1 year that we did a road trip, it was the year I had been cut backs here at the radio station. I had the summer off. It was my wife's best summer. She always says that was the greatest summer because she was a teacher, so she had the time off. I was unemployed, so I had the time off. And we road trip back to Wisconsin, and we stopped by the Badlands. We went by Mount Rushmore. To Waldrug?
Yeah, South Dakota, Waldrug.
We saw the signs for Waldrug. Yeah. We did not stop. No,
that's the big thing, eh?
The signs are nonstop. But we went to Glacier, Badlands, Mount Rushmore.
Wow.
Yeah, we hit up a lot of spots. That was the trip we went to Field of Dreams in Iowa. I convinced her that we should make that little side trip on the way back. Have
you been to La Crosse?
I have, I believe. I think we drove through La Crosse on our way to her hometown once we got, because we took the north route out, I think, because we went to Glacier, and then we took the south route back because you can go through North Dakota or South Dakota going out and back.
In La Crosse, they have the world's largest six-pack. It's literally like a giant, six-pack of beer.
Okay.
That's what we did go to.
We did go to 1880s town. Supposed to be like an old kind of Old West type of town. You can walk around and they got a bunch of old buildings they've collected that and they put it together to make it seem like an Old West town. We did visit that. We went to Corn Palace.
Oh, I've been to the Corn
Yeah.
Palace. Actually, the Corn Palace is cool. I have a story at the Corn Palace real quick. So we stopped at the Corn Palace, and we were like walking around. They have like the big gym inside.
Oh, yeah.
there.
They got the whole gym inside. The
Yeah.
whole building's covered in corn.
So like we walk into the Corn Palace, and there's a band playing. And playing that night was Whiskey Myers, like Southern rock band. I don't know if you know Whiskey Myers. Kind of a big band. But they were playing there that night. But they were just doing like their rehearsal during the day. And so we walked in and we like sat there for
sound
like
check?
4 like songs of Whiskey Myers.
Huh.
Like we just randomly walked into the Corn Palace and then there they are. It's like crazy. And then like the next fall they were playing the McDonald Theater in like Eugene. I was like, wow, this is like crazy. We saw them for free at the Corn Palace.
It is, there's a lot to see on that trip.
There is. And
There's also a lot of stretches with nothing but corn or soybean.
that drive from Sioux Falls to like Mount Rushmore was like a lot of nothing.
So we went to Mount Rushmore during Sturgis.
Oh, it was
We did
packed,
not
eh?
realize it. We were driving on the freeway, and all of a sudden we're surrounded by motorcycles. We got in to go to, Mount Rushmore. It's right there by Sturgis. There's just people everywhere, motorcycles everywhere. We were like, wow, we did not necessarily time this out all that well.
Dude, I don't know what your experience was like, but it was it was a very interesting experience at Mount Rushmore.
We'll have to get to that here
Yeah.
as we get the next hour underway. But let's see. We've had breakdowns of Oregon and compared to Sherm Thunderbird. We've talked about Corn Palace. You get everything on this show, so don't go anywhere. Hour 2 of the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show next here on The Score.
For your Score Sports update, I'm Nate Uretsky. The high school football playoffs continue today. In the Class 2A state playoffs, the number 2 Oakland Oakers host the number 7 Myrtle Point Bobcats in a rematch from the regular season. The two league opponents met on October 18th, with the Oakers rallying from a first quarter deficit to win 38-14. Now, the Bobcats look for revenge and to knock the Oakers out of the postseason. Tonight's game kicks off at 7 p.m. from Sutherland High School. Fans can tune in for coverage starting at 6:45 p.m. on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM. Tonight's broadcast will be audio only, but you can also hear it online at 541radio.com or the 541 Radio app. Coming up tomorrow, the North Douglas Warriors begin the playoffs after a first-round bye. North Douglas is the 3 seed in the 1A 8-man playoffs and will host 6-seeded Dufour on Saturday at Sutherland High School. Game kicks off at 1 p.m. For UCC, the Umpqua men's basketball team is in Arizona for the start of their regular season. The Riverhawks got in a handful of exhibition games last week, but officially start the year with 3 games over 3 days in the desert. The UCC men will face the Diamond Doves from Overtime Elite in their first game tonight at 6 p.m. Tomorrow, the Riverhawks take on Scottsdale Community College at 3 p.m. And then on Sunday, UCC squares off with Mesa College at 9 a.m. The Umpqua women's team will be hosting the UO club team for an exhibition today. That game begins at 4:30 p.m. in the UCC gym. The Riverhawks officially start the season next week at the Clackamas Tournament in Oregon City. For Oregon State, the Oregon State men's basketball team is off to a 3-0 start on the year and will try to stay undefeated today when Cal State Fullerton visits Gill Coliseum. Titans are 0-3 with losses to big-time programs like Stanford and Colorado. Tonight's game tips off at 7 p.m.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services, such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
Experience fall adventure at Wildlife Safari. The new hours are 9 to 4 p.m. So come on out and enjoy the cooler weather and more active animals in the 600 acres of drive-through wonder. Schedule an animal encounter and get up close and personal to many wild friends. The free Safari Village and the Safari Grill are always a treat. The animal artwork offers great ideas for holiday gifts. Dates for encounters vary, so for details visit wildlifesafari.net.
Deals this good are just too great to wait at your local Coastal. Coastal Farm and Ranch, with just what the country needs.
Shop now at Coastal for the perfect holiday gifts and essentials at Black Friday prices. Prepare for the chilly outdoors. Stay warm with hot deals on heated gear like internally warming action heat apparel and accessories. Plus the Black Sierra Heated Cloud Camp Chair for $40 off. Make your holiday grilling extra flavorful and get a free bag of Green Mountain Grill's Apple Blend wood pellets when you buy a bag. Shopping early means you can space out holiday spending, which is easier on your budget and less overwhelming, so you can enjoy the holiday season stress-free. Visit in-store or online from November 13th through the 19th for a store full of savings that you just don't want to miss.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, with just what the country needs.
Don't delay, save today with Black Friday deals at Coastal.
Local sports talk in Douglas County. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. Fridays, noon to 2, right here on 92.3 FM KWRZ Canyonville and 1490 AM KSKR Roseburg. We're The Score, Douglas County's home for sports. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. We're setting up shop, so pop open the cooler, pull up a seat.
Who wants to have some fun?
Let's talk some pigskin.
You just want me next to your side to shoot photos and do color.
It's
and
nice to
stats.
have a Swiss Army knife there in the booth with me to do all the things that I can't do while I'm doing broadcasting on top of it. So.
I mean, it's not like you're not a Swiss Army knife yourself.
Well, it's nice to have multiple tools. So we are a couple of tools here in the studio for you today.
From the Score Sports Closet, it's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Well, we open the toolbox and get ready to go. Just a couple of tools here hanging out with you. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
There's like 3 straight weeks of being tools,
I know, right? I need to find a new clip to put in there. But
yeah, screw it, eh?
I don't mean to hammer home the point, but...
I think we've hit the nail in the coffin on that one.
Let's level things out here just a little bit. All right, it is Knight Uretsky. I'm Joey Kieran, and this is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving for you here on Douglas County's home for sports. It's The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM. We are happy to be with you here on this Friday as we're gearing up for high school football coming up tonight. We've got the pleasure and the joy of getting a chance to do yet another high school football game for you coming up tonight. The Oakland Oakers still in it into the quarterfinals. We're going to be covering that game for you here this evening on The Score after being there at Oakland High School last week in the first round. Now we'll be out at Sutherland High School for their playoff game on the turf there. We'll be having coverage starting tonight with the Friday night pregame show at 6 o'clock. That'll be plenty of Oakland Oakers coverage. Hear from quarterback Ryan Fullerton. Hear from the opposing coach. That's Jamil Wynn for the Myrtle Point Bobcats. And then that'll take us right to the start of our pregame show live from Sutherland High School, where you'll get a chance to hear from head coach Ben Lane for the Oakland Oakers as well. So extended pregame tonight with the Friday night pregame show starting at 6 right here on The Score. Do want to make sure if you're tuning in and listening and you want to catch up on what's going on with Oakland football tonight when that game's going on, just so everybody knows and help us spread the word. If you know of any Oakland fans, you can help get the word out there. Tonight's game will be an audio-only broadcast. We don't have the opportunity to do the video stream due to stuff that is out of our control. We are unable to do the video stream. So audio only. You can listen on the radio, or you can listen online at 541radio.com, or use the 541 radio app to listen to the game as well. So a lot of ways to follow the action. You don't have to be within range of the radio station. You can listen online as well, but unfortunately we don't have that video simulcast that I know our fans have grown to love. We had a lot of folks tune in and watch last week. Unfortunately, not able to do that again here this week in the postseason. But we do have coverage coming up for you, so you can tune in for Oakland Oker football right here on The Score and catch that game as they welcome in Myrtle Point tonight. And thanks to the sponsors that are helping make that possible. Sponsors like Henry Logging, Double S Logging, Center Market, J. Lindeen Brown. We had Pacific Northwest Power Equipment and Mobile Diesel. We appreciate all of them for helping us make this postseason coverage possible. As we get ready for that, though, we got plenty to talk about here as we kick off hour number 2 of the program. I caught just on Twitter here today. before we dive into kind of game coverage of both Oregon and Oregon State, as the Ducks and Beavers both in action on the road this weekend. I caught this from, it was Paul Feinbaum. Mike Greenberg, Paul Feinbaum, I mean, I think you know what to expect when I say that name. But this was their take on the latest college football playoffs that were announced this week.
It's the Umpqua.
Nope, that's not working. Why did my clip not...
It's the Umpqua.
Yeah, one moment here. Technical difficulties. It's the name of the game here today.
It's been the story of the day.
It really has been. Let's hope it's not a trend.
I still can't get over the fact that this committee has 4 of the top 5 teams in the country from the Big Ten. Where do you sit on that?
Oh, 100% agree. Listen, Indiana is a phenomenal story, and Kurt Cignetti has done a masterful job. And this is a really good football team, but the schedule is embarrassing. And I look at Indiana's schedule and say, if you play Georgia's schedule, you will have your 5th loss tomorrow night against Tennessee. Penn State has played one good team. They've lost. It's going to shake out, but it's still ridiculous at this point for this committee to meet for 2 days and come up with just an embarrassing slate of top teams.
Embarrassing slate of top teams, according to Paul Feinbaum, who is noted SEC homer.
Huge SEC homer. Like, if this guy could pick the college football playoff rankings, 1 through 18 would be the SEC.
More than likely, yeah. Maybe they leave.
Maybe they put Ohio State in.
I was going to say maybe they leave Vanderbilt out, but Vanderbilt's actually good this year.
Vanderbilt's good this year. Actually, I think the worst team in the SEC this year is Oklahoma.
Really?
Let me look.
Welcome to the SEC, Oklahoma.
Oh, I was wrong. There's one team worse than Oklahoma.
Is it Missouri?
No.
Oh, man.
Missouri's good. Missouri's ranked.
Are they really?
Dude, Missouri only has 2 losses. There's a situation where Missouri could play in the SEC championship.
Well, I saw that there was some sort of somebody had a scenario where you've got LSU wins the SEC championship and the SEC gets left out of the 12-team college football playoff. It'll never happen.
No,
I saw
because
that.
LSU would get in.
Because it was a scenario where LSU was not a top 5 ranked conference champion.
Yeah, I don't care. They're not putting Army in over LSU. No, Mississippi State is that team. Mississippi State is 2-8, 0-6 in SEC play. So, I mean, that's fair, but also, if you want to complain about that, Georgia only beat Mississippi State by 10. Texas A&M only beat Mississippi State by 10. It's why are they struggling with these teams?
So
I don't get it. I thought the schedule was so good.
If this was the Pac-12 conference, it's a weak and watered-down conference. But it just means more, so it's the SEC, and they're just eating up on each other. I mean, this has been the storyline for I don't know how long. It has driven me crazy. The Pac-12 was constantly, there was never an undefeated Pac-12 champion. You always had teams just beating up on, there was never an easy game, and there was always that one game that tripped up the conference champion contender. It was just always happened. And they'd always just say, well, the Pac-12 is just not that good that they can't make it through a season undefeated. How about if your team is going undefeated in your league? Maybe the rest of your league's not that good and you had one good team that just was able to beat up on everybody else. But now that the SEC's eating its own, oh no, it's just so deep. The league is so deep. It just drives me crazy.
Drives me crazy too.
And Feinbaum can suck on a bag of pickles.
Yeah, that's fair. It's so funny too because if you look at the Big Ten conference, there's not a lot of good teams. It's the 4 of the 5 that are in the top 5 right now.
Yeah.
And then a lot of mid.
And then it's a big drop.
It's a big drop off. I mean, they really put the mid in Midwest. It's crazy because you get to Iowa, then you get Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin. Those are your teams right after Penn State. There's a significant drop off with those teams, and it's fine. The Big Ten right now is really strong. Oregon probably could beat anybody in the country. Ohio State probably could beat anybody in the country. Penn State could probably beat anybody in the country not named Ohio State. And then you got Indiana, who's just kind of this wild card right now that we don't know.
You've been following Indiana. How do you think that they would do SEC schedule. Like Feinbaum thinks they'd have 5 losses.
You know, I don't know if they'd have 5 losses. They're really good. But it's also like we don't know necessarily because I mean, a lot of the teams they've played have just kind of been like the bottom teams in the Big Ten. Their 3 non-conference were FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte. That doesn't tell you everything.
No, that doesn't tell
in
you
the Big
anything.
Ten, and again, they've dominated every single game they've played, but they've played UCLA, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, and Michigan.
Yeah.
Like just they just haven't played.
That's a
like,
light schedule.
It's a pretty light schedule. If you look at the teams where they're standing in the Big Ten right now, sure, it's light. But at the same time, like, you can only play the teams that are on your schedule. And what have they done? They've outscored their opponents this season 439 to 138.
Oh, my goodness.
Like they've dominated. That's like North Douglas type numbers right there. And you can make the case, North Douglas, they're putting up these numbers against 1A schools. They can only play the schools on their schedule. Indiana right now is just dominating their opponents, and that's where it's kind of like they're this wild card. I don't know if they'd lose 5 games in the SEC. I mean, there's a possibility. There's also a possibility they could win those 5 games in the SEC.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be kind of determined next week at 9 a.m., another early kick.
But at least it's in the Midwest, right?
It's in the Midwest. So it's a 12 o'clock kickoff at Ohio State at the Horseshoe. The good news is you get a bye. So this week, Indiana on a bye. They don't have to play. They got 2 weeks to prepare for Ohio State. Ohio State, they have to play this week. But it's kind of a bye game because they're playing Northwestern. So you kind of have these 2 teams that are heading towards this head-on collision. And I really think, and I know that like this sounds crazy because Oregon has beaten Boise State and they're a top team, but like if Indiana goes in and beats Ohio State by like a touchdown, like if Indiana wins like 35 to 28, I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana's number 1 in the country next week. I really wouldn't be surprised because if you look at their resume, they've dominated their opponents. They would have the win on the road at Ohio State by, let's say, 7 points.
By more than what Oregon
than
beat
by
Ohio
what
State at
Oregon
home.
beat Ohio State did at home. And they're 2 undefeated teams. Like, there's a realistic opportunity where Indiana could go into Ohio State, win that game, and then be number 1 in the country. It wouldn't matter at the end of the year. Oregon would play Indiana in the Big Ten championship game, and it would be number 1 versus number 2, 2 undefeated teams. How incredible would that atmosphere be?
Ooh.
Oregon versus Indiana in Indianapolis. Indiana's never had a 10-win season. They have 10 wins this season.
I know.
It's first time ever. But you know that's where I'm at. Like, Paul, you can make all these what ifs. Like, you know, there's so many what ifs in this world. You know, what if aliens were real? You know, who cares? Like you can't just say what if. The fact of the matter is, Indiana's 10-0. They're doing it in a conference that has 4 top 5 teams. That's impressive.
Yeah, no, totally. And this is why the 12-team expanded playoffs was important, because we've got super conferences where you can't really decide it on the field because you're not playing everybody, right? Like, sure, you can get, like, Indiana. I mean, Indiana's not going to play Oregon during the regular season. So, obviously, a conference championship game is important. But having, I think, the expanded playoffs with these super conferences the way they are right now was kind of important to be able to put things in that direction. So, Oregon is headed to Wisconsin. We just saw a member of the Duck Territory, Matt Preem, tweeting about Culver's and made us both jealous here in the booth. I'm disappointed that I may not get Culver's this Christmas like I usually do when I make the trip back with my wife to Wisconsin.
And the custard's so good, too.
I've never gotten their custard.
Really?
I don't believe so.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, the custard's great. Really good.
Their cheese curds are good. Their butter burgers are delicious. Oh, man, it's
cheese
good
curds
stuff.
are so good.
Oh man, I love cheese curds. Yeah,
100%. I was telling you, Max. When I went to Wisconsin last year, Max. So I finally found the photo and show this on the YouTube stream. So those watching on YouTube, you can see. But that's what the mac and cheese that I got at Max in Madison.
Okay.
For you folks.
I don't feel like I've ever heard of Max in Lake Geneva, where my wife is from.
Okay.
And that's where we usually, obviously, spend most of our time. So
they have I think there's like 17 locations throughout the state of Wisconsin. definitely check it out. Highly recommend. If there's other areas of Wisconsin that you get to go explore, like, I mean, if you ever go around.
Yeah, we've been
I'm
around
sure
some,
I'm sure
yeah.
you fly in. Do you fly into Chicago or do you
fly into Chicago.
Okay, so then maybe you don't hit the hit the Milwaukee side a little bit, but definitely check out Max. Definitely jealous though.
I'll keep that in. I'll keep that in mind for the next trip out to see the in-laws.
That and Portillo's.
Yeah, I know that's the other one I'm thinking about.
Now
too,
you got
so.
you got to hit.
I got a couple of spots.
You got to hit Portillo's because you're coming in from Chicago, and that's as Chicago as it gets.
Gotta hit a couple of spots that you guys have made me aware of here. So you're giving me the intel on some things there.
Yeah.
Dan Lanning's not giving anyone any intel. Be moving. Here on we are. Thank God. Stupid technology. What the heck?
It's been a day, eh?
I got to close all of these files because none of them are going to want to play the way they're supposed to. So once again, let's just pretend like I didn't just do all of that. And you're giving me the intel, Knight. Dan Lanning, he's not sharing any intel.
Do you feel like there are any particular holes within this Wisconsin unit that you guys can kind of expose or take advantage of this weekend that you guys are looking at right now?
You want me to tell you our game plan is what you're saying?
Game plan, no, just
like, hey, this is how we're going to attack them? I'm not telling you that.
Dan, he's just so secretive. I mean, what the heck, man? Yeah, why can't he give us all the intel?
Oh, you know what it is? It's so funny. Like year one Dan Lanning to now is just such a big difference. You know,
he's so comfortable.
He's gotten so good at his coach talk. It just makes me think about like what Matt Watson's gonna be like in 2 years. It really does, because like
his coach talk got a lot better.
By the end of the season, Watson's like coach talk was like through the roof.
He started figuring out how to say something without saying something.
100%.
For sure.
And Dan Lanning's just done a great job of that. I think probably one of the funniest parts of that clip is just like the other journalists in the room just starting laughing.
Speaking of Matt Preem, I'm pretty sure I heard him laugh in that background there. So
yeah, and it's funny too because like Brett's the one that asked that question, and like, you know, I feel like that's a question that I've asked before, not to Dan Lanning, but to like, you know, like a coach or like, you know, to like a player here in town, like, hey, what have you guys seen on film that you guys are looking at right now?
Yeah. No, what are the things you guys are, you know, focusing on, or areas that you feel like you guys have a strength against the other team? Like, I mean, it's a pretty standard question.
Yeah, but Dan was just like,
but
having it.
But in fairness, Dan, I mean, yeah, you're not expecting him to give you the playbook, but at the same time, like, you know, like, what have you seen on tape that you feel like you guys might be able to
you know, like the low-hanging fruit answer Dan could have been like, is like,
yeah, they're a really good team.
They're a good team. They're very disciplined. You know, we're going to have to be our best. You know, Oregon's playing Oregon. Like, that's what you could have done. I mean, but he just took it to another level. And that went viral. Like, that was all over social media.
I saw that one because somebody, Big Ten Ted, I think is what it was. And he's like, I love me some snarky Dan. Good one there. But looking at this matchup, Oregon and Wisconsin, I mean, I looked through Wisconsin's schedule. Look, I mean, they've put up some numbers and whatnot, but they've beaten the teams they're supposed to beat, and they lost to the teams that you kind of need to beat. To me, that's about what it sounds like.
Yeah, and, you know, they played USC really close on the road. They were leading at the half on the road and then got shut out in that second half.
That's a game that maybe that's one that got it. But, you know, it's like the teams that are above them, they lost. The teams that are below them, they've beaten.
And it's really tough because, I mean, this is a team that's dealt with injuries. They're starting quarterback. You get a transfer quarterback. Your quarterback last year graduates, Tanner Mordecai. Your backup quarterback, Nick Evers, he transfers. So then you bring in a new quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke, historic pedigree at Miami, former ACC Freshman of the Year. He put up some numbers. It felt like this was the right fit. Comes over to Wisconsin, having a good opening drive against Alabama, gets hurt. And after that point, it kind of felt like it took a few weeks for their offense to get rolling. This last week versus Iowa was brutal. I mean, 2 weeks ago, they played the Hawkeyes, lost 42-10. Score's a little bit more lopsided because they kind of had that Dan Lanning type touchdown at the end where they scored a touchdown with 1:15 to go to make it 42-10. Otherwise, it's 35-10. They scored another touchdown in the fourth quarter. It was 28-10 in the fourth quarter. That's what you need to know. They kind of kept it close. But this is a Wisconsin team that I think the one thing that stands out is their secondary. Their secondary this season is one of the top in the country. In fact, this season for Wisconsin, their secondary is allowing just under 160 yards per game. Right now they're averaging just allowing 158.9 passing yards per game, which is second in the Big Ten and sixth nationally. So that's the one thing that stands out. This is the best secondary Wisconsin's had since the 2006-2007 season, where they only lost one game on the year and won 11 games. It was a good Wisconsin team that year. Paul Chryst, I believe it was his first season. But for Wisconsin, they haven't faced a passing attack like Oregon. You know, that's the main thing, is that they played Alabama. Alabama was a little bit maybe that passing team. USC also kind of torched them a little bit. Miller Moss, he threw an interception, but he still threw 308 yards. That's a pass-first offense. And these numbers could be inflated because they have played Purdue, Rutgers, Northwestern, Iowa, and Penn State. Those are programs that don't necessarily throw the ball more than they run the ball, and so it's a little bit inflated. The other funny note that I saw in this is that Wisconsin this season, in terms of their secondary, they've only allowed 2 pass plays of 40-plus yards, which is tied for Ohio State for the second fewest in the Big Ten. Both of the ones for Ohio State came against Oregon. So Oregon was able to exploit Ohio State's quote-unquote elite secondary, and that was a big storyline heading into that matchup, was that Ohio State doesn't allow big explosive plays. What did Oregon do? They were able to stretch the field vertically. And I think that this is a game where Wisconsin, as good as their secondary's been this season, it just hasn't faced an offense as dynamic as Oregon's. Sure, no Tez Johnson on the field definitely limits Oregon's ability to stretch the ball vertically because Johnson's speed, but you still have Evan Stewart out there. Trayshawn Holden has some wheels. Justice Lowe's gotten some action. He's gotten some speed. And so, it's still a dynamic, dangerous Oregon receiving core. And so Wisconsin's going to have a lot on their table this week.
And they're bad against the run.
They're bad against the run.
And Oregon, I think it's going to set up well for Oregon to be able to then open things up in the pass game with, if they can establish that run, which is what every coach is going to say. But when you're ranked 16th in the Big Ten in run defense, and Oregon's a team that can. Oregon is the number 4 ranked team in the Big Ten in running the football, number 1 in passing. I think this offense, like you said, is going to test Wisconsin in ways it has not been tested this season. That game kicks off 4:30, right? Let me double check. Yeah, 4:30 tomorrow.
Yep, 6:30 Wisconsin time. Yeah, and that's a little scary because they're good. And prime time at Camp Randall. They lost to Penn State this season. They were winning in the fourth quarter against Penn State, and then Wisconsin threw a pick 6 in the fourth quarter of that game. They've won 10 of their last 12 night games at Camp Randall dating back since 2016. Only losses against Ohio State last season and then Penn State this season.
Playing there definitely did have me concerned, but let's go back, what was it, 2 weeks ago against Michigan or whatever it was?
Yeah.
And, Grant, timeline's different or whatever, but Michigan's, I don't necessarily think they're a much worse or much better team than Wisconsin right now. Oregon went into a big, loud, raucous stadium.
A big house, you could say.
Hey, you could say that. And, they made it their own. I think they know what to expect, and they're going to have the right mindset.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I think that they're prepared for a tough environment. I think there's something different though playing under the lights.
Yeah,
and that's a big thing. That game against Michigan was a 3:30 kickoff Michigan time. This is a 6:30 kickoff in Wisconsin.
That's fair.
That's fair. That's the little difference that you get. And you can say what you want about kickoff times and if the energy is different. It is. That build up to a 6:30 game in Madison is going to be insane. The number 1 team's coming to the country.
Yeah.
I know for the Penn State game, I have friends at the University of Wisconsin that work for the student media publications there, and they're students there right now, and they posted on Twitter right before that Penn State game. They're like, if you're wondering why the student section's so empty before the start of the game, it's because the line's this long. And the line is insane.
Yeah.
And you're probably expecting that type of environment this week for Oregon with the number 1 team coming to town. They've had some big games in Madison, and this is kind of like their Super Bowl. I mean, they have nothing else to lose. Like,
Yeah.
You're coming off a bye week. You're at home. You have the number one team coming to town. You have Luke Fickell, who's in his second season there.
Mhm.
And, Wisconsin, one thing that stands out looking at their game notes, and I told you this, like, they've been the most consistent team in the country. How? They've had 22 straight winning seasons since 2002. That's my whole life. My entire life, they have not had a losing season. Their streak is the longest amongst all Power 4 teams. That's how consistently good Wisconsin's been. And Luke Fickell this year, you look at their record, and they're 5-4 and 3-3 in Big Ten play, and I think that a lot of Badgers fans are upset. Like, they're not used to this. They're used to competing a little bit more. And yes, things are different. Like, the Big Ten is completely different. Wisconsin, for all those years, lived in the Big Ten West, and the Big Ten West sucked. Like, it was like you got to get past Iowa.
Yeah.
If you get past Iowa, you're probably going to win the Big Ten West.
Yeah.
And then you maybe lose that one game to, like, Ohio State, or you maybe lose to, like, Michigan. You still get into the Big Ten championship game because you just got to beat Iowa, or maybe it's a down year for Iowa, and then you maybe beat Minnesota. Like the Big Ten West wasn't great. Purdue got into the Big Ten championship game a couple of times because the Big Ten West was just not that great of a division. And so now Wisconsin fans are grappling with the fact that things are different. They're not winning as many games. The schedule's tougher. They're having to play Penn State. They played Alabama. They're playing Oregon now. It's tough. But if you're Luke Fickell, like, you're looking for that signature win. And that's this week. Like, you're coming off a bye, you're at home, and you have that opportunity to get your signature win, because there's a lot of Badger fans that are calling for your job, and you could say they're impatient. They need to trust the process. Going from the I set to the triple option is going to take some time, but this is your opportunity, if you're Luke Fickell, to try to get a statement win.
I mean, Oregon is everybody's Super Bowl right now because they're the number one team in the country, and they're going to get everybody's best shot. So that is the scary part of being number one. I'm less concerned about this game than I was a couple of weeks ago, but I think I agree with you on the timing, the venue, a lot. Wisconsin, just the program they are, but I think that they're banged up, and I think that is a key to look at this. And I think Oregon, just schematic, is going to be problems for this Badgers defense. So it's going to be a fun one. 4:30 kickoff tomorrow, 2:30 start time on the pregame show. You can catch that on our news partner, News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN. Find it there and tune in to hear Jerry, Jorgie, Joey, Dusty. They will have the call for you on the Oregon Sports Network. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're looking at the Beavers, who are on the road taking on Air Force. Former Roseburg Indian Troy Calhoun leading that Falcons program. But these are two teams that are kind of desperate for a win. And Oregon State, real desperate for a win. We'll have more on that when we come back. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving here on The Score.
Your Score Sports Update. I'm Nate Uretsky. The high school football playoffs continue today. In the Class 2A state playoffs, the number 2 Oakland Oakers host the number 7 Myrtle Point Bobcats in a rematch from the regular season. The two league opponents met on October 18th, with the Oakers rallying from a first quarter deficit to win 38-14. Now, the Bobcats look for revenge and to knock the Oakers out of the postseason. Tonight's game kicks off at 7 p.m. from Sutherland High School. Fans can tune in for coverage starting at 6:45 p.m. on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM. Tonight's broadcast will be audio only, but you can also hear it online at 541radio.com or the 541 Radio app. Coming up tomorrow, the North Douglas Warriors begin the playoffs after a first-round bye. North Douglas is the 3 seed in the 1A 8-man playoffs and will host 6-seeded Dewford on Saturday at Sutherland High School. Game kicks off at 1 p.m. For UCC, the Umpqua men's basketball team is in Arizona for the start of their regular season. The Riverhawks got in a handful of exhibition games last week, but officially start the year with 3 games over 3 days in the desert. The UCC men will face the Diamond Dubs from Overtime Elite in their first game tonight at 6 p.m. Tomorrow, the Riverhawks take on Scottsdale Community College at 3 p.m. And then on Sunday, UCC squares off with Mesa College at 9 a.m. The Umpqua women's team will be hosting the UO club team for an exhibition today. That game begins at 4:30 p.m. in the UCC gym. The Riverhawks officially start the season next week at the Clackamas Tournament in Oregon City. For Oregon State, the Oregon State men's basketball team is off to a 3-0 start on the year and will try to stay undefeated today when Cal State Fullerton visits Gill Coliseum. The Titans are 0-3 with losses to big-time programs like Stanford and Colorado. Tonight's game tips off at 7 p.m.
Reach a large and engaged audience with Brook Communications radio stations. With a weekly reach of over 90,000 people.
Over 100,000?
Our stations are the perfect platform to get your message out there. Whether you're looking to promote a new product, service, or event, our team will work with you to solve your advertising problems and get customers through your door. Connect our audience with your business. Contact Brook Communications radio stations today and let us help you grow your business. Call 672-6641 or visit 541radio.com.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
Covering the latest buzz from the gridiron, this is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
Do you feel like there are any particular holes within this Wisconsin unit?
25-yard attempt for Halverson with 1 second remaining to try to give San Jose State the lead at the half, and the Beavers block it just to serve. The Beavers block the kick. And the half will come to an end in a 10-10 tie. And that's the right thing to have happened. A 10-10 tie. The Beavers block the kick, and it is justice.
Oh, you gotta love Mike Parker and the Oregon State Beavers. I got to see Mike earlier this week. I helped engineer some Oregon State men's basketball, and I got to catch up with Mike a little bit up in Corvallis earlier this week. Thankfully, they were playing Western Oregon, so there weren't moments that were quite that lively for Mike Parker in that broadcast.
Mike's just like banging.
Oh my God! So that is the clip that goes with a video that was circulating on Twitter or on X on social media of Mike just. I'm going to play it again here real quick.
25-yard attempt for Halverson with 1 second remaining to try to give San Jose State the lead at the half, and the Beavers block it just to serve. The Beavers block the kick. And the half will come to an end in a 10-10 tie. And that's the right thing to have happened. A 10-10 tie. The Beavers block the kick, and it is justice.
Yeah, you tell him, Mike. You tell him.
He does not ride the fence, that is for sure. That was the field goal attempt at the end of the first half for San Jose State last week at Research Stadium. That drive had benefited from a roughing the passer penalty and a pass interference call that helped move San Jose State closer and closer to the end zone. They ended up kicking. They were at the 8-yard line when they set up for that field goal, and it was blocked by Oregon State. So Mike apparently did not agree with the officials on some of those penalties, and I guess ball don't lie.
Ball don't lie.
Ball don't lie.
See, that's why you love Mike Parker.
Oh, for sure.
Like, that is the reason why Mike Parker is one of your favorite announcers, especially as a Beaver fan, because he's got your back. Like,
for sure.
You want that out of your hometown.
He will definitely let the officials know if he does not agree with that.
He tells it how it is.
Oof.
Oh my dude, I've had some stories with Mike. So like I broadcast with him with the Springfield Drifters and the Corvallis Knights. He broadcasts the Knights, and when the Drifters and Knights play each other, we'll do like a little bit of a split broadcast. So I'll do like at home at the Drifters games, I do 1 through 3, and then he would do innings 4, 5, and 6, and then I do 7, 8, 9, and then like at the bottom of the 3rd and bottom of the 6th, we'd come on together. Because he likes to do like the solo call thing, but like occasionally like I'll hop on and like do color commentating for like a half inning, just kind of that transition period, and we'll do that together. or like at the end of the game, like I'll come on with him and like help him out or whatnot. But so I've been with him broadcasting, and oh my gosh, like there was a call that was like someone called like a strike, and it was like one of those ones when you're like broadcasting in the docks and it's like well below the guy's knees.
You're like that pitch is a bit outside for strike 2.
It was like pitch is very low, called a strike. How did he miss that call? It is, it's like it is 0-1, but it should be 1-0 if all things in baseball are right. Like that's like the type of thing that like Mike would say.
Yeah.
And that's what you love about him is that he just tells it out how it is. And
for sure.
He gives you his opinion. You may you may agree, you may disagree. He's gonna give you his opinion.
Yeah.
And he's gonna give it to you on his side.
It was fantastic to see him that animated about a blocked field goal there at the end. If you, I think I've got it bookmarked on my X. I'll share it there. I've got that probably somewhere here that we could pass that along if you want to check that out. It's Joey Keeran on X, JoeyKeeran. Where is he? There he is. I'll just repost that now. Mike's great. I've never that was my first chance to be kind of at the table next to him in a broadcast. But him and my dad went to high school together at Cottage Grove back in the day when he was a broadcaster in Portland. I called into his radio show as a kid. We lived in Portland. He was doing a show. My dad knew him, so we called in. He remembers my dad all the time. And so it's always cool to have that connection there with Mike, and the fact that we're both now broadcasters is a lot of fun. But great to see him getting so excited about that one. Unfortunately, second half did not provide Oregon State with the excitement that they were hoping for of pulling off a home upset against San Jose State. I heard this kind of line of conversation when it came to Oregon State football that and it's not like we didn't know that they were going to be in a rebuild mode, but it's a hard pill to swallow after what they had built up into with Jonathan Smith over the last number of years, and then just everything crumbling underneath them last year when Jonathan Smith departs to go to Michigan State. And so I think it was kind of hard for me, at least, and I'm not a fan. Maybe fans are a little more, fans aren't usually realistic about it, but to me it was kind of hard to grasp on the fact that this program went from a rebuild that was kind of like finally being understood and
built,
realized. Yeah, being built.
Like the dam was built.
Yeah. To now they're back at square one starting over again. And it's so how fast that has gone. I think you have to understand that we went from being bowl eligible wasn't that big of an accomplishment because it was assumed. That's where you were at last year under Jonathan Smith. To now being back to where if we can get to bowl eligibility, okay, we've got the season going in the right direction. If we don't, well, we understood that this team is building towards that. And we're back to that. And I think I heard Trent Bray talking about how this is a rebuild, like it was under Jonathan Smith a couple of years ago. That's where we're back at with Oregon State. And it just hurts. It hurts that that's where this team is at.
It really does. And you mentioned it. It just feels like, you built up to this point, and then all of a sudden it's gone. It's kind of like, it is like building a dam, and I don't mean to just say this because it's like a beaver, because
reference. That's what they talk about all the time.
But it is. It's like you drain the lake. The lake's been drained because Jonathan Smith left, but even before that, you drained it. Jonathan Smith built the dam. You filled the water. The lake starts to fill up. The fish start to come back because the fish left when the dam was gone.
You have a thriving ecosystem.
You have a thriving ecosystem, and then all of a sudden, there's circumstances out of your control, whether it be lawmakers, whether it be, activists. They want the dam to be taken apart again. The dam was the Pac-12. The Pac-12 broke.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now all the water's come out, all the fish has gone out. You still have a little bit of fish in there. You have a little bit of a pond, and it's kind of surviving right now, but it's not thriving the way that it is, and you need that rain to come. And the rain's going to come. Like each year the rain's going to come. You're just waiting for it to come. You're just not at that point yet. And that's the tough part, is that 2 years ago, this was a 10-win team. This is a team that goes 10-3. Last year, yes, they went 8-5, and the expectations were a little bit higher. And yes, they had a couple of losses.
I would say the end of that season with where Jonathan Smith was definitely changed the trajectory of that team with him apparently gone, already out the door.
And it's so interesting because, like, when you were going to college and, just a little bit
back in the day,
just a little bit past when you went to college, like Oregon State was a well-respected program.
Oh,
in
yeah.
the 2000s, they went in 2006, they went 10-4, 07, 9-4, 8, 9-4, 2009, 8-5. Like, those are good years for Oregon State. And they even got to that point in 2012, they went 9-4. And after that point, Mike Riley leaves and the program kind of slips. And it goes down to probably the basement where they went 1-11 in 2017, Jonathan Smith's first season as the head coach at Oregon State. They built up 2-10, 5-7, 2-5 during the COVID year, but they beat Oregon, went 7-6, got that 10-win season, ranked in the top 25 the majority of last season, and all of a sudden, the rug gets pulled under you, and you find yourself kind of back in that familiar point. And this is a program that, they can win. It just takes time. And it's been that way with every coach, even going back to Dennis Erickson. It takes time to build up to that point, but you're just kind of at a point now where you've been in limbo. You can't really recruit that well because you're like, hey, you could come here. We don't know who you're playing next year, but, we have a good culture here. You're starting to figure out the pieces. Hey, Boise State's coming to town. Fresno State's coming to town. We got these good programs joining the Pac-12. For basketball, Gonzaga's going to be here. The Pac-12 is going to be well-respected again. And Trent Bray is a good coach. He has that Jonathan Smith mentality in him. He has we're going to roll up the sleeves and that blue-collar mentality. We're going to pack our own lunch today and, make something of it. But when you lose all your resources and the dam's broken, you're just waiting for the rain to come, and that's where they're at. They're just waiting for the rain, and this season it feels like a wash.
Yeah, it's just what is so. You mentioned, it can be done at Oregon State, and we've seen it early 2000s. Dennis Erickson. We've seen some highlights with Dennis Riley. I'm going to mix him too. Mike Riley. Mix the two together there. We saw the highs there with Jonathan Smith where this team gets to, 10 wins, like you said, a couple of years ago. The hard part to just reconcile is just how many times this program has, unfortunately, kind of imploded. It's like it has done the work. It has gone through the rebuild only to see all of that progress wiped out by coaches leaving, coaches being inept. I mean, the Gary Anderson era. Oh God, just just a.
Is it?
Oh, just makes you sick to your stomach.
It
how
really
that
does.
Just all went down, and so
you know what's so interesting about the Gary Anderson era is just like the fact that he left Wisconsin for Oregon State. Like.
Yeah,
isn't that weird?
It is weird. There's a lot of weirdness.
Like imagine that would be the move that you would think. Like last year, if Jonathan Smith made the jump from Oregon State to Wisconsin, you're like, oh, that kind of makes sense. A coach on the rise, a Big Ten program that's struggled a little bit. Like they're trying to get somebody to come in and build a good culture, but somebody leaving Wisconsin for Oregon State. It's hard to comprehend with the way that current college football is being played.
For sure.
Do you actually remember the story why? Because it's such a stupid reason why.
No, I don't. Not off the top of my head.
So Gary Anderson, this is so bad. He left Wisconsin because he said the academics were too high of a standard to recruit. And so he went to a program like Oregon State because he wanted to recruit athletes that could get into the university.
Oh my goodness. Just terrible.
It's just terrible. And there's a reason. That's probably one of the main reasons why they were so bad.
He was horrible. I mean, that was a horrible experiment. But that, and Mike Riley was great. But the whole lifetime contract, he leaves and comes back, and it kind of always kept you in flux of like, can we get Mike Riley back? Can he get the program back to where it was like, it just, at some point they needed to move on, and they just had a really hard time of doing it. And then unfortunately, when they finally did fully move on from him, they brought in Gary Anderson. So it's just, that's what kills me with this program.
Well, did they bring... They didn't get rid of Mike Riley, did they? Or was
Well, Mike Riley went to the NFL. They brought in Dennis Erickson.
I know, but didn't Mike Riley leave Oregon State to go to Nebraska?
Yeah.
Yes.
But they finally got a chance to move on. Like,
Oh,
they
yeah.
finally broke that. It was like their drug. He leaves to go to the NFL. That doesn't work out. They have Dennis Erickson. He leaves, and they're like, well, let's get Mike Riley back in here. Then Mike Riley, he comes back. They give him a lifetime contract.
I mean, he was good to start. That's the thing.
He was a good coach.
Like Mike Riley's first few years back, they go 8-5, 7-5, 5-6, 10-4, 9-4, 9-4, 8-5.
Great coach.
Like, he had some good years.
And then but they made them, like, you don't give anyone a lifetime contract. I get it. Like, he was a staple there. But you don't give someone a lifetime contract.
Why not?
Where's that? How's that going to work out well for anybody?
Would you give Dan Lanning a lifetime contract?
No. I would give him a long one, sure. Make sure he's well paid. But there's no benefit of a lifetime. If you want him to stay, then just keep renewing his contract. But don't give him a lifetime one. That gives you no out. Then you are stuck. You either have to ask him to leave or you have to hope that he does it on his own. It doesn't leave you in a good spot because eventually you're probably going to get to a point where you just things need to change.
Okay, so, I wasn't necessarily old enough for, like, the early Mike Riley drama because he left before I was born from Oregon State and then came back. But what this sounds like is a toxic relationship, and then the solution was to put a ring on it.
Yeah, kind of about where that ended up being. Yeah, that sounds about right. This week, very winnable game. Kind of, it's a must win. You can't kind of continue to go the wrong direction here. So definitely one that Oregon State, they should be coming home with a good plane ride back from Air Force in this one. So as much as I'd love to root for the Roseburg guy on the other side. Unfortunately, I don't see this one working that direction.
Troy Calhoun.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so cool he's been there forever.
Yeah, he's been there forever.
And it's so cool, like, reading his Wikipedia and just, like, reading about him, and he draws influences from Thurman Bell, and you're like, wow, this is so cool. Like, it's so localized. Like, Oregon State, like, they're on the airwaves here on The Score. Like, Beavers, there's a lot of Beavers fans in Douglas County, and it's so cool that, like, you get this kind of mix, this, like, crossover between, like, the Beaver fans of Douglas County and then one of Douglas County's own. So he went to the Air Force Academy and now is coaching there. It's so cool.
It really is. And his sister went there, went to the Air Force Academy, was a great track and field athlete out there as well. So, it's really cool, that connection. Unfortunately, not quite the season they were hoping for there, but that game kicks off at 12:30 tomorrow. Pregame will start at 10:30 here on The Score tomorrow, Beavers and Falcons, and you can tune in and catch that. You can catch the esteemed Mike Parker coming up here tomorrow with that call. All right, we got to get to a break. When we come back, we're going to do a quick Friday news dump as we get you off on your way here to this football weekend that is ahead of us. Don't go anywhere. The Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving when we come back here on The Score.
Champion Car Wash celebrates 30 years serving Douglas County. Introducing the new Thoroughly Clean Car Wash, featuring Carnauba polish with a ceramic graphite finish and towel dry. Now offering free vacuuming and buy one, get one free wash through October at Champion Car Wash.
The quarterfinals for the 2A state football playoffs are here. After dominating the Nestucca Bobcats 44-0 last week, the number 2 Oakland Oakers take on Myrtle Point Pacific this Friday at Sutherland High School. The game kicks off at 7 p.m. with radio coverage on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM. Audio-only broadcast available online at 541radio.com or with the 541 Radio app.
Deals this good are just too great to wait at your local Coastal.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, with just what the country needs.
Shop now at Coastal for the perfect holiday gifts and essentials at Black Friday prices. Prepare for the chilly outdoors. Stay warm with hot deals on heated gear like internally warming action heat apparel and accessories. Plus the Black Sierra heated cloud camp chair for $40 off. Make your holiday grilling extra flavorful and get a free bag of Green Mountain Grill's Apple Blend wood pellets when you buy a bag. Shopping early means you can space out holiday spending, which is easier on your budget and less overwhelming, so you can enjoy the holiday season stress-free. Visit in-store or online from November 13th through the 19th for a store full of savings that you just don't want to miss.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, with just what the country needs.
Don't delay, save today with Black Friday deals at Coastal.
From opening night to Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans, don't miss a second of the NFL this season. Hi, this is Kurt Warner of Westwood One. Join our crew each week for the best in primetime NFL action. Monday night, Sunday night, and Thursday night football, plus marquee games on Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Christmas, and more. Westwood One is the exclusive radio home for every primetime and postseason game. It's right here.
On your home for the NFL, The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM. Oregon's only statewide sports talk show wants to hear from you, Douglas County.
Sean is in Roseburg. Sean, welcome.
The Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano is talking Beavers, Ducks, the NFL, Blazers, and more.
Let's go to Daryl, who's in Myrtle Creek.
Share your opinions by calling 503-417-7575.
Let's go to the phone lines. Kelly is in Glide, Oregon. Is that right, Kelly?
That's right. Hi. I can't believe you took my call.
Sports talk for Oregonians. It's the Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano. Weekdays, 3 to 6 on The Score.
A lot of talk about the COVID-19 vaccines, and everyone has an opinion. So I went to somebody I already trusted, my doctor. Talk to your doctor or healthcare provider and make the decision that's right for you. Go to getvaccineanswers.org for the latest information. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Talking prep football, Beavers, Ducks, and the NFL. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTV Moving.
Well, we are wrapping things up here with a favorite segment. We don't get to it all the time, but always a good time when we do. It's time for your Friday News Dump.
Before we move on, I'm getting word we have a breaking story.
You're getting ready for the weekend, but we don't want you to miss out on the big headlines.
Your tone says this is good news, but your body says there is no good news.
Covering the news you need to hear. It's your Friday News Dump.
All right. Knight Uratsky and I have curated these headlines for you here. Let's see. We're going to start off with Syracuse football because why not? And if I tell you,
good old Fran Brown.
If I tell you that winners get washed, that's exactly what I meant to say. It is Fran Brown from Syracuse.
Honestly, I got like a ritual. Like when we lose, I ain't even getting a shower till early this morning. I just be mad. I just brush my teeth. But it's like I don't deserve soap. I don't deserve to do all that. I'm just focused on like trying to get back and trying to make sure that our players mentally understand and know that I let them down, that they didn't do it. You know, I just wake up all night, especially when you lose. You like wake up like, dang, it really happened. You know, it really happened that way. So it's just different pieces. And then I just move on. There's a process that I follow every week. Win, lose, or draw. Only thing is like my wife, I can't sleep in the bed if we lose because I ain't going to get in the shower for that day. I'm just mad and I just sit there. I just brush my teeth. That's what I have to do so y'all won't say my breath stink, but I'm just kind of locked in at certain things, certain ways. I think you gotta earn the right to do certain things. So, you know, winners get washed. You know what I'm saying? I'm a loser. I just kind of waited a little bit.
You got to earn the right to do certain things. Like,
it's so good.
Take care of your personal hygiene. Winners get washed. You know what I'm saying?
But my thought process is like, is the only reason why he brushes his teeth is because he's worried about the media thinking his breath's gonna stink. like would he just not brush his teeth if that was
not if he lost?
If he lost, would it be a bye week and like he doesn't have to do the media thing on Monday? So he's just like, you know what? You don't deserve the toothbrush today.
He's looking at himself in the mirror. He's like, didn't win that game. I know I haven't showered in 3 days, but we got to be winners, and winners get washed. I don't get washed. Sorry, honey. Sleeping in the guest room. Good thing I get paid pretty well, and we got a nice guest room.
Yeah, literally.
I mean, like those sheets in the do the sheets in the guest room get washed?
Does he even get the guest room? Does he punish himself with the couch?
Sleeping on the couch, sleeping on the floor tonight, honey. Winners get washed. I ain't that good. I'm not that. I mean,
I need to sleep on the floor because I need to get that dog in me.
how long does he go without taking a shower after a loss? Like, is it just one day?
Like, I think
and
it's
then,
that
does he have to get a win? Like, maybe does he go to the arcade, play a little skee ball, he wins some tickets? Okay, back on the winning track. Now I can go home and shower. Like, where's the line here?
That's a great
Where
point.
is the line, Fran Brown?
The line might be just like, I woke up the next day, there's eggs on the counter, I won this morning.
Yeah, my wife's she's still in the house. She hasn't moved out yet, so I think that's a win there.
Yeah, I feel like it has to just be one night. Like, you can't go an entire week without showering.
I sure hope so. We're short on time, so we'll get one more here. Okay. He wasn't a winner, unfortunately, but he did everything he could to try and get him there. Bo Nix was named your Rookie of the Week last week after nearly taking out the Kansas City Chiefs, and it made an impression on a Kansas City Chief.
Peyton's got those guys motivated and playing great ball on the offensive side too. Bo Nix, holy shit, that guy was f***ing ripping it out there
especially
yesterday.
in the first half. They got up to
playing
an
some
early.
good f***ing football, man.
That was Travis Kelce on the New Heights podcast, where they can apparently swear all they want because Travis Kelce was letting them fly, man.
Yeah.
But Bo Nix, so I have to admit this because I guess I should. Let's see. It was the Boise State game. I was at a tailgate party with a friend of the show, Josh Nelson, who used to co-host with me. And, he was feeling, we were all feeling a little good. I mean, we hadn't gotten that crazy yet, but he was telling me Bo Nix will be a better NFL quarterback than Caleb Williams. And I was adamant. There's no chance.
What?
There's no way.
Why?
I just thought that Caleb would be a great NFL quarterback. I'm feeling a little bit sheepish on that comment at this. Look, I didn't think that Bo would be a bad NFL quarterback. I thought he would just be an average NFL quarterback. And I thought Caleb Williams had the chance to be an elite NFL quarterback. And there's still time for both of these things to work out. It's still very early in their careers. But Bo has looked really good in the NFL.
He has, but it also is the surrounding pieces around him, the coaching staff. There's a new offensive coordinator now coming to town in Chicago. Bo has a little bit more stability. Sean Payton and Bo kind of like, that's the right quarterback for him. He's Drew Brees, but with a few inches taller. And that's exactly what Sean Payton would want.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy. Like, Bo's first couple of weeks in the NFL
they were
brutal.
rocky.
They were rocky, but he's starting to turn a corner. It's so tough. It's so frustrating. Sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but it's so frustrating as a Raiders fan just seeing the Chiefs win every single week.
Yeah.
And it's like
be so close.
Be so close to losing. Like, the Broncos should win that game.
Yeah.
Like, they have a kick inside of 40 yards and it's blocked. Like, it's just
It's
crazy.
just the Chiefs would make that happen,
right?
right?
The Chiefs are just making it happen. I don't know. I don't understand.
I saw somebody say, or I heard somebody say, they're like almost bored. It's like we'll just turn it on when we need to, and then we'll get to the postseason, and then we'll win another Super Bowl.
It's
because Mahomes and the Chiefs, fourth quarter or on third down. This is the stats I was hearing, that fourth quarter and third down, they're like one of the best teams in the NFL. Everywhere else, like, they've been mediocre this year. But like, when it matters, they do it.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like they have some of that extra magic that's coming to Husky Stadium tonight.
World of Warcraft!
World of Warcraft! They have some Warcraft that's working in their favor, it feels like, especially on third and fourth down and in the fourth quarter.
Oh, we've run a little long, so we got to get out of here. This is the problem with
putting two broadcasters in a room.
Well, and just having so many other things to do in a day. We got to get off and get ready for some Oakland football coming up later on tonight. So we will wrap it up there. Good show today here, Knight. Thank you so much for being here in the Score Sports Closet, which may soon be getting upgraded and Knight brought in a TV. I'm supposed to bring in my mini fridge that's gathering dust in the garage. This might turn into a true place to hang out.
Yep. Got to get it ready for that Oregon State game in a few weeks.
We are very much excited to be here in the studio with you and doing this program. Thanks to BTB Moving for sponsoring the show. And thanks to you for tuning in. We'll be back coming up next week, and then we'll be off the week after Thanksgiving. But we got one more show before that, at least, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back next Friday at noon, and we wrap it up here with you on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show here on The Score. Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB